Hi, I'm Avara Sarkay, back with the Winter Tower. Last time.
This is delicious.
I'm glad you like it. I feel a little empty inside now that it's all over.
Is that so? I'm just glad that you weren't hurt.
Could this be the feeling that my father felt when he met my mother? Alexis, will you marry me? I couldn't say the words.
Something's not right.
He started to spasm. Alexis, they poisoned the wizard! He dropped to the floor.
He's been poisoned. There's only one person who would do such a thing.
Melissa.
We need the antidote now. He won't survive much longer like this.
Melissa laughed hysterically the moment she saw me enter the dungeon. Even Igor was shocked speechless by his mother's demeanor. She's gone insane. Making a deal with her will be pointless. I ignored him for the moment and waited until Melissa stopped laughing. After her moment of hysteria ended, she panted for breath. What do you want? That face of yours! I want to see that face of yours oh so dearly. Melissa clasped her hands around the cell bars and whispered, You took what belonged to me. While he was away for that short period of time, those 6 short months. What are you talking about? You became so cocky after teaching him a few letters. I could have done that too, you know.
Back then, the Lord was in love with a certain young lady. He told me he felt like dying when they were separated.
I read all of it. I saw all of it. I'm the only one who can truly understand his feelings. Huh. This castle, this power, they were supposed to belong to me. Who are you to barge in and steal them from me? Melissa was living in a fantasy world where my father had never met my mother. Was that why you sent me poison? Yes. Since you took what was mine, isn't it only fair that I take what's yours in exchange? Just as your father brought a woman back when he returned from the tower, you brought a man along. What's the antidote? I neither know nor care. I ordered the servants to use everything at their disposal. For all I care, they may have mixed poisons. This is the worst-case scenario. I got out of the dungeon because it wasn't worth my time to listen any further. It was Melissa's housemaid who had poisoned the food. She had already killed herself, knowing we would come after her. Though we dug through her belongings and found the poisons that were used, we had yet to uncover its exact composition. I laid Alexis on the bed next to my father's and prayed that he would hold on until an antidote was made. I chuckled at myself. It wasn't so long ago that I promised I would protect Alexis. Now all I could do was pray. If I had taken a bite of the dessert first, I would have realized it. Alexis simply ate whatever I offered him without a hint of caution. How can you be so naive? He was just like the elves. I half expected him to wake at any moment and gobble down all the desserts in the castle. Him dying didn't even seem like a possibility. Romanov stopped by after changing my father's bedsheets.
My lady, do you remember this book by any chance?
I do. It was my favorite book when I was a little girl. The cover had a drawing of a small, yet brave young warrior.
I read this to you a few times over the years. Do you remember the name of the protagonist?
I think it was Alex.
Yes. Well, his full name was Alexis Yevgenich Strelnikov.
Wait, what did you say? I opened the book to confirm the name. It was indeed Alexis Yevgenich Strelnikov.
It isn't a common name. Isn't it surprising that the name of this man is identical to that of your favorite childhood character?
It must be a coincidence. Nah, this is a story. He is the main character of that book. Okay, so does it help? What does the book tell us?
I recall something else from your childhood, about an elvish friend you often described.
I did?
It was a long time ago. You stopped mentioning him after you began your education. I hope he recovers like the brave boy in the storybook.
Romanoff handed me the book, then continued to change Alexis's bedsheet. My father regained consciousness after 4 more days. After hearing what had happened over the past couple of months, he granted the 2 people in the dungeon the death sentence. Melissa claimed her innocence until the very end. You know, despite confessing to me in person the one time that Ekaterina went down. Fortunately, the antidote was ready soon enough, and Alexis's condition was alleviated. What? The antidote was just made off-screen? Everything was hunky-dory? What? This was barely a hiccup of inconvenience. Although he wasn't poisoned anymore, he remained asleep. What was more, he grew stone-like, like an elf without their hat. Seeing Alexis in this state, I flashed back to a conversation that he and I had.
It's as you suspect. Hats are like an elf's heart. And without it, he'll gradually cease to move.
What happens if they completely stop moving?
He will fall into an eternal sleep. At that point, he won't come back, even if his hat is returned.
So Alexis is dead already, and has been since he fell comatose. Okay, what bad decision did I make this time? Do we need to go back and punish the elf just to see what happens? The doctor said there was no cure for these symptoms. Praying was, once again, my only option. If Alexis were an elf, I could return his hat before he ceased moving completely. But Alexis wasn't an elf. Or is he? I had never even seen him wear a hat. He hasn't changed a bit since we first met. My only source of comfort was spending time with the elves that came out of the chimney at night while everyone else was asleep. They piled up sweets on the bed and played music to show how much they cared about Alexis. Everyone is waiting for you, Alexis. Now's not the time to be lost in dreamland. Kate! The tiny elf that had pranked me before gave me a sweet. I accepted his gift and gave him a tight hug to thank him. Holding the warm baby elf like a teddy bear gave me a sense of déjà vu.
I recall something else from your childhood, about an elvish friend you often described.
Since elves can travel through chimneys to any place they want, perhaps I ran into one of them in the castle. Though I can't remember the friend clearly because it was so long ago. He would have been bigger than you. I tried my best to jog my memory while I patted the baby elf.
To the very core, elves love sweets, pranks, and...
It was something that Alexis had once told me. Wait, no, it wasn't. As if lightning had struck me, something flashed through the crevices of my memory.
To the very core, elves love sweets, pranks, and...
Snow sugar?
making promises.
Oh. Chapter 9, Old Memories. Well, if the story's still going, I guess we're still okay. It was a long, long time ago. Well before I started my education and training. I would sometimes play hide and seek with Romanoff. I would roam around the castle wearing a snow-white hat and coat. Romanoff always found me, no matter where I hid. So I hid even farther out to lose Romanoff. I snuck into more secluded and remote places by the day. It was between the crates in an abandoned storage shed that I met a little elf who was shaking in fear in the corner. Having realized that he was discovered, he froze on the spot. "Hi, are you playing hide and seek too?" Are you sick? Or cold?
Huh?
Oh, it was Alexis. He is an elf. Come here. I can warm you up. I simply assumed that the elf with a reddened face was sick. I gave him, who was desperately shaking his head, a tight squeeze. Does your heart hurt? Romanov says it's not good to have a fast-beating heart. My mommy passed away because her heart was weak.
Huh?
I'm Ekaterina Ivanova. What's your name?
I...
The elf was breathless, so he stuttered.
have no name.
Then, what if I call you Alexis? Alexis Yevgenik Strelnikov. He's the hero in my favorite book.
Alexis Yevgenik Strelnikov. Alexis.
The elf repeated his newly given name to commit it to memory. How is she only remembering this now? Oh no, Romanov is here. I need to go hide somewhere else. Bye! I ran out of the shed when I heard Romanov's footsteps. A few days later, the elf peeped out from the small fireplace in my bedroom. He had grown a few inches taller since I'd last met him. He greeted me with rosy cheeks.
Hi, Ekaterina.
Hi, Alexis. Alexis's ears and cheeks dyed red when he heard his name spoken. Do you always have a cold?
I'm not sick.
Alexis handed me a piece of chocolate. Chocolate is bad for your teeth.
Not these ones.
That chocolate had the loveliest and richest flavor of all the sweets I'd ever had. This is delicious.
If you really like it, I can make more sweets for you anytime you want.
Alexis blushed all the way down to his neck when he saw me smile. He returned it with a shy grin of his own. The elf continued to show up every now and then. Eventually, he became more talkative. He would sometimes ask me questions that I wouldn't understand, or tell me fun facts about elves. How does she not have a core memory of this such that when she reaches the tower, she just knows stuff?
To the very core, elves love sweets, pranks, and making promises.
That's adorable.
An elf can do these things thanks to their hat. Without it, they're powerless.
I feel like there's a pun about hats and hearts here. Promises were sacred to elves. He told me that keeping promises was as important to them as their hats.
Kate? Do you know what it means when you give an elf a name?
No idea. Please enlighten us. Are we married now? No. What?
It means that you'll become their master.
Oh. Well, that's gross. That's really gross. Romanov told me that everything in this castle belongs to my daddy. And I'm his daughter. What belongs to my daddy will become mine someday. Since you're in my castle, I suppose you could say that you're mine too. I'm glad you're seeing this so innocently, Ekaterina, but, anyway, moving past. The elf grew serious and questioned me.
Are you the master of this castle right now?
Not yet, but I will be. No. They still call me Young Lord.
If I accept you as my master, will you promise me one thing?
What is it?
My hat is the most important thing I own. I'll give it to you. But in exchange, Will you give me yours?
Alexis, giving up your hat, doesn't that mean you'll die? I don't think this was a wise decision for you. Okay. This went poorly for both of them, I assume. Possibly resulted in the missing memories until just now.
You can't forget. If you become the master of this castle and forget our promise, I'll vanish.
I promise to remember. Soon thereafter, I started my education in sword training. People flooded around me. The elf visited me less and less often. The elf, as well as the promise, became fragmented and lost in my memory. Well, that's sad. But now, I remembered everything. To elves, their hat was the root of power, life, and heart. Because I had forgotten our promise, because I had turned away from him. Alexis was dying slowly and quietly. An elf's hat means his life. My hat is... the rapier? The ring of the Ivanov family? I would guess it was the ring. I am going to guess that it's the ring, because it is the one thing that she couldn't leave home without, and as much as she's got the rapier, that's more a tool that she uses regularly. It's not who she is. It's not her heart. Her heart is definitely her family and her title and her goals in life, I would think. Alexis, though I may be late, I'm ready to make good on my promise. I want to give you my hat, and you will give me yours in exchange. If an elf's soul was their hat, mine was my family ring. I pulled the blue sapphire ring off my index finger and wrapped Alexis's hand around it. A faint blue glow emanated from Alexis's chest. Could Alexis's hat be... pretty? I touched frosty crystal with the tip of my finger. The crystal magically turned into a beautiful ring. Alexis's heart. He'll die if I don't grant him a new one. I firmly pressed my blue sapphire ring onto Alexis's chest. The blue sapphire melted away. It smeared into his chest like melting snow. Soon, Alexis was consumed by dazzling rays of light. You can do it, Alexis. Alexis! The elves rushed out from the chimney and gathered around Alexis. I pressed an ear against his chest, listening to his rhythmic heartbeat. I gently caressed Alexis's cheeks as I watched them return to their original color. On your feet, lazy bones. The lady herself has come to wake you up. Aw, it worked! My dear elf slowly opened his eyes and greeted me with a drowsy voice.
Good morning, Ekaterina. My lady.
Finished. I'm kind of surprised it just abruptly ends like that. Exchange of hearts. It's the same credits. The Winter Tower. Yeah. Well, that was definitely... more happened in that ending, and I think we finally filled out the gallery. So the rest would be... I think there's like a DLC through Steam. But I don't know if that really gives you the kind of closure necessary, because I would assume it would just end up being an epilogue of some sort. It ended a little bit abruptly, but at the same time, it did wrap up everything that it needed to, and we did get most of the backstory on what he is, where he came from, all that. There's potentially still some questions about what happened and how he got from her room to the tower, how he decided to get big. Did he have to trade something in order to become a human? There's probably a little bit of a story there in some capacity. Like, I'm getting some serious Little Mermaid vibes now that we know he was originally a elf himself, one of those little tiny gnome things. But it was a very cute story. It would have been interesting to get a few more hints and bits and pieces of what their backstory was together earlier, because it kind of felt like when that came up at the end, it was like, what? A little bit? And wouldn't she have remembered some of it? In which case, wouldn't it have been, I don't know, like if she had different things, and I think she had like a couple of sides when she said I'd heard stories about, but from the beginning, for example, the monster that lives in the tower or whatever, that never came up again. That was never even a thing. So there's a little bit that kind of seems like it may have fallen by the wayside and didn't quite get worked in the way as intended. But overall, this was very cute, and I really liked it. This was adorable. It's got gorgeous art as usual, and it was a very straightforward, just kind of fairy tale setting type thing. This was nice. Anyway, hopefully this was as entertaining for you as it was for me, and thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a good one, and thanks so much for watching. Bye!